March Madness is upon us. And couple that with the NBA season is going on, actually going to the playoffs. A better way to bet on those games and games in other sports like the Premier League and everything else, or even Major League Soccer, than betus.com, where you can get 125% of the sign-up bonus, which is up to $2,500 by using the promo code TKT for the Klown Times. So what are these other perks here? You can bet on the go. You can bet anytime, anywhere on your mobile device. You get fast pass, or you get paid immediately every single time. And last but not least, you can you could do live betting where you can bet during the game, getting the early and the best lines. Again, use my promo code TKT for the Klown Times to get up to 125% of the sign-up bonus, which is up to $2,500. So again, not to sound like a broken record, but go to betus.com where the game begins. What happened to Art Briles at the end of his tenure, which led to the end of his tenure at Baylor, as well as the firings of the athletic director, and I think the president, the school president. I gotta check that. But I do know at least the Ken Starr was the former athletic director at Baylor, who was also the guy, ironically, who was a prosecutor against President Bill Clinton during these impeachment trial regarding Monica Lewinsky, who is a funny follow on Twitter, by the way. Yeah, so anyway, so all of that, right, transpired, what, damn near 20 years ago? So, well, not 20 years ago, but yeah, about a little over 10 years ago. But anyway,
the Art Briles stuff or the Monica Lewinsky stuff?
The Art Briles stuff,
That was 2016.
Okay, so that was 6 years ago. Okay, 6 years.
Yeah.
So basically, dude has been radioactive.
Yeah.
Since then, and to the point where he had job offers from the CFL, and even on a high school level in Texas, where he became a legend before he went to Baylor, right, as his offensive guru of sorts, right? But both opportunities have been, similar opportunities have been met by backlash.
Yeah.
And to the point where there was enough outcry for him to say, you know what, either he rescinded it or they mutually rescinded, right? The school or the team was case the CFL or whatever. So fast forward to what went down shortly after Hue Jackson got hired at Grambling State University, where it was rumored, then it became reality that he hired Art Briles to run his office. So remember how excited we were, because I'm thinking, well, damn, you got with the combination of Hue Jackson and Art Briles and a lot of the scrutiny they were getting, you know they're going to run the score on everybody, right? So.
Oh, yes. Dude, I was waiting for week 3 of the season, which is, of course, is against who? Jackson State University. Even though it's a non-conference game, just the concept or even the thought of an Art Briles led offense. I don't even know who's on that offense as of right now and how talented they could potentially even be in an Art Briles offense. But if he can somehow get it together in 2 weeks, quick enough to face that daunted defense that a lot of people assume that Jackson State will have with all of the recruits that they currently have received, man, I was straight Birdman, and I was ready. I wanted to see how that was going to go down, but now we're not going to get it.
But you say out of conference, is that counted as an out of conference game because they're both SWAC opponents?
Yeah, it was going to count as a non-conference game.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so similar to in the ACC last year when Wake and Carolina played, it was counted as an out of conference game, even though they're both ACC. Okay, got it. Okay,
yeah,
yeah. So all that to say that it was the same backlash came from alums, from people in the media. I remember Andrea Adelson, who writes for ESPN.com. She normally writes a lot about the ACC. So she's an ACC person, but she felt compelled to express a disappointment in Grambling hiring Art Briles.
Yeah.
So, which is an interesting read in and of itself. But as with the other stops, Art Briles, I guess the heat was so high that he decided to step away, not to become a distraction. And I don't know if you caught the interview he had with some young lady in the media, asked him about the past. And he was, I guess he was a little bit gracious, but he never really fully apologized. I don't remember him fully taking sole responsibility, I should say. But nevertheless, that one other person who matters, at least to me and you, and old school NFL fans, that was one Doug Williams.
Yeah.
Went off. He said he never met the man, but for what he knew about him, he was very disappointed. And we all know that Doug Williams and Grambling have a very complicated history, but to say the least. But he made his expressions felt about his Art Briles' past and how Grambling would be brought under the microscope because of said past. And Art Briles is no longer there. So so basically, are you disappointed that Art Briles is no longer there? Is the backlash still justified because of what happened to those young women 6 years ago, that all that went on under his watch? Since the buck stops with the head coach, right? That's where it seems to be. We have all those young men, his players, sexually assaulting a lot of those women, that many women doing it under his watch. So are you upset that Grambling brought this upon itself with the hire, and then the resignation shortly thereafter? Or what was your whole take on this whole deal?
For selfish reasons, like I just said earlier, yes, I would have wanted to see exactly how this was going to play out.
Right.
Primarily having an HBCU to have a coach of his caliber on their staff, and also a guy who also served as an offensive assistant with the Cleveland Browns under Hue Jackson, while he was with the Browns. It would have been interesting to see how they would have been capable of developing an offense there at Grambling. With all that said, I understand the backlash. I completely get it, especially in a situation like you just said. He just seems to be still completely unapologetic, fully based upon, well, not based upon, but he seems to be unapologetic on the actions that happened while he was there in Waco. And that's still problematic to me. Now, I get that, he one of the things that he talked about, of course, and he and Coach Jackson, which was his ability to want to be able to coach up young men. And unfortunately, he had a situation there at Baylor that transpired into, 51 counts, which is dastardly, to say the least. But my thing is, I like I said before, I have an issue with him not being 100% apologetic, but at the same time, I still have an issue with the unforgiveness that's going on with Art Briles, even though I understand why it's so difficult to do so. So I get both sides, and I don't know if I'm necessarily leaning one more towards one than the other. But I just have a strange feeling that had he been going into Daytona Beach to face Bethune-Cookman, which would have been a conference game which will be a conference game in week 4, undefeated, or at least with 2 wins under their belt, and mind you, their first 3 games are against Arkansas State, which is a FCS program. So if they were to somehow steal a win from them, and then I forget who their second game is against, and I if memory serves me correctly, it is an FCS. Well, I'm sorry, Arkansas State is an FBS opponent, and I forget who the FCS opponent they would have faced in week 2. So if they would have somehow gotten with, it's Northwestern State. That's exactly who it is. Now, I know I should remember who Northwestern State is based upon past conflicts on the show.
Man,
but if they were to have at least gotten one of those wins and then defeated Jackson State on their way to Daytona Beach, I strongly believe at least the Grambling fan base would have kind of swept the distraction under the table from their perspective. But I mean, there's no way in the world you would have been able to control the words coming from the SWAC fan base, especially of opposing teams, and from the media. But if they're winning, it kind of calms that down a little bit, if not a lot, especially like I said before, if they were capable of beating Jackson State. But again, we'll never know. And it's disappointing all around in my eyes that we had to get to this point.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that offense. I'm not going to lie. I would love to see that offense under Hue Jackson and Art Briles. Because I was thinking about the recruits that they were able to pull in with Art Briles' Texas connections. Because I'm sure he still has them.
Yeah.
Right, I'm sure he still has them. I'm sure some of those high school coaches in Texas are still revere him as like a god. You know what I'm saying? So even with the unfortunate stuff that took place in his watch at Baylor. But yeah, I think, I mean, I understand it. I understand the backlash. Okay, I understand. I don't have daughters. You don't have daughters. No. So I wouldn't, I have like a niece who's like, who would be 9 years old in August, who I consider like a daughter, but still, I mean, I don't know, so I'm just going at it from strictly a non-daughter, a person who has a son. So I'm going in blind like that, but I will say it's all around disappointment. I think I would have loved to see that offense underneath those two coaches. I would have loved to see the recruits that offense would have attracted, because the damn sure would have attracted some recruits. And, I hate to see it played out the way it did at Grambling, because now it seems like here we go again with HBCU, right? Even though it's not necessarily HBCU's fault, they didn't have sexual assaults underneath a certain coach's watch that took place, right? They didn't have anything happen. They're just trying to do the job. And, people still aren't feeling Art Briles. And he looked like he aged a lot. He's in the 60s, I think. So, I mean, I don't know if for the outcry, the outrage should be so great at Grambling at this point in time, to the point where he had to just let Hue Jackson them know that he didn't want to be a distraction anymore and just pulled out. Then I don't know if he's able to I don't think he'll be able to work again.
Neither do I. I completely look at him as a pariah as of this moment. Now I do have to, set the record straight a little bit. Now let's not get it misunderstood that, rape happens to both men and women.
Sure.
So, I'm most definitely concerned about that, I am concerned about that happening to my son. And I don't want it to happen to anyone at all. So I don't want to go ahead and dismiss that because of my selfishness of wanting to see Art Briles coach a football team. And I understand how minuscule that is in comparison. It has been 6 years, but the thing that concerns, and I was hoping for forgiveness, especially from the one thing. What is the one thing that we always talk about as it pertains to HBCUs and HBCU athletics that fans have to talk about a lot? Culture, right?
Right.
And my thing is, you can't cherry pick what you want to praise and like about culture and then put other things to the side.
Right.
That being said, one of the things that comes along with HBCU culture, in my eyes, is religion. And one of the things that comes
with some religious people, aren't we?
I know, right? You would think that they would have forgiven him for his transgressions, but at the same time, a lot of this backlash isn't just coming from HBCU fans and HBCU alums and those associated with HBCU. Like you said, there are other writers and journalists that have also commented about this hire and their disdain for it as well. So I understand how it can be an issue. Well, I know how it can be an issue outside of HBCUs. I was just hoping that HBCU fans and alums would have attempted to forgive him, but at the same time, like you said, Scott, this dude is giving such a hard time in terms of coming out with a proper enough apology to make you want to forgive him for what happened 6 years ago.
And that's the rub. That's the rub right there. You're right.
Yeah, right. But I also find it interesting that Doug Williams, that's my man, 100 grand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the most important Black athletes within my lifetime, and one of the most important Black achievements within my lifetime as well.
Yes,
being the first Black quarterback to win a Super Bowl was accomplished by, of course, Mr. Sanders. But not Sanders. I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying Deion Sanders, Lord Jesus. By Mr. Williams, and of course the Washington football team here, for whom he works for currently, right? Which makes it that much more interesting because of all of the transgressions that the Washington football team has also had to deal with based upon the things that they have done.
That's called irony, yes.
You know how ironic that is?
Yes,
you know, with all of the women that they've harassed both on staff and as cheerleaders within their organization. Not to say that Doug was being complicit, but he never spoke out. I've never heard him say anything in terms of his displeasure with the things that have come out about the organization, and he's still employed there. Even though I will say this, he seems to be more of a figurehead than an actual employee with the Washington organization, because he doesn't make any decisions.
Right.
If anything, he just makes decisions with the alums, and he's more so.
He was once a scout with Tampa. He was once in the scouting department at Tampa, if I recall.
Oh, he was also the VP of player personnel here in DC.
Okay.
So he was involved in some of the decision making, not all of it, but he was involved in some of the decision making as it pertains to the players that made it to the team. And I would love to say that a lot of the HBCU athletes that played with Washington were because of his suggestion. Now, oddly enough, now that he no longer has that place here in the organization with the Commanders, they only have one player from the HBCU, which is Danny Johnson, which of course, in my eyes, is still a suggestion from Doug Williams. So yeah, you had that one lone carryover where at one point in time they actually led the league in terms of how many HBCU alums they had on their roster. Okay. But again, to my point, you got all of this conjunction, or you have all of these comments about Art Briles, but yet you can't come out against your own organization. Come on, man. You gotta do better than that. You do, in my eyes. But to your point, you talked about how having Art Briles on your roster brings up the microscope so that people start investigating your program. That man was only there 4 days, and the microscope
Isn't that crazy?
Out. Yes, and the microscope was pulled out, and the things they found. You got to remember, on Monday before Briles resigned, a statement was released by Hue Jackson on the letterhead of his Hue Jackson Foundation, backing said Art Briles, right? Again, microscope came out, you know, and the people started doing investigation on the Hue Jackson Foundation. With that said, this came out from Dan Murphy of ESPN. This is on his Twitter. It says the Hue Jackson Foundation collected $158,000 in 2019, the most recent tax info available. It paid out $115,000 to its sole paid employee. So the one in Bama got $115,000, and I'm thinking that one sole employee might be Hue Jackson, but I digress. And spent another $15,000 on travel. It looks like they gave out roughly $4,000 in grants. So of the $159,000 that they received in donations, only $4,000 went out in donations. Yeah, again, you might want to watch what you do, especially if you're a little dirty, when you want to go ahead and
when you want
to go ahead and play around in that pig pen. Because
only 4 G's.
Only
Wow.
4. So it's
Wow.
very interesting that that oddly enough that information came out, but I'm not surprised because of course people are going to start kicking around the can since it's there. You want to go ahead and get involved? Let's see what you got going on with it. Oh, you got that going on? Yeah. What
That
else you
is
got going on there? Yeah. Yeah.
crazy, crazy, crazy. Oh wow. So so I guess what the next question is, what
Mm-hmm.
will happen to Hue Jackson now? I mean, do they have enough to, because that's I'm not clear on white collar crime as far as the specifics of it, but that sounds like a little bit of embezzlement, maybe. Because you're keeping the vast majority of the donations and
Mm-hmm.
sharing out only a small fraction of it, because if people assume if you're donating to something, it's going to be all be used for charitable causes or grants or whatever. It's not going to go to the person running the damn foundation. So that to me screams embezzlement almost, because now it's just that now a Ponzi scheme type of thing, but you're keeping a lot of the money that you're supposed to be donating. You're under false pretenses.
Yeah.
So
now I don't know what's going to happen to him because again, like I said before, it is something that has kind of been glazed over. I haven't heard much about it. It's not to say that people aren't talking about it.
Sure.
I just haven't heard much about it. And I'm intrigued to see exactly if this thing picks up traction. And if it does, how will it be treated and how will it be addressed? So yeah, for the next and again, it's been what since Monday since that report came out. It's been 4 days. If it took 4 days to get Art Briles removed, you would think by now it would have been some conversation. If this is going to be something to remove Hue Jackson, it was something that would have been at least discussed by now, but it hasn't. So I'm just going to keep an eye out on it to check and see if anything actually transpires because of it.
Interesting. Wow, you got something to keep an eye out on. Damn sure. That's crazy. It's out of a one story. It's going to probably end up in a totally different tangent. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on Grambling for more reason than one for this, at least this season, at least the next few months.